Enderquin has been watching us, studying us, waiting for us. But we didn't always know that. See, the legends of Quintropolis have always pointed towards a higher power. Ever since the secret of Stonewall was fulfilled, I knew something else was out there. What I did not know was how to communicate with it. Until now. Last you recall, we were just returning to Starlight HQ after several months in hiding at Stonewall. I built some cool new things and prepared the third faction, Starlight Outback, for development. This was 3 years ago. Fast forward to today, and I've solved the mythological puzzle. We are about to visit Enderquin. So, I'm going to show you everything I've done between now and then to get you up to speed. In Session 215, an unfortunate lightning strike burned away most of the Darkroom mob spawner, so I rebuilt it out of clay materials. Continuing this aesthetic, I rebuilt the Power Museum out of quartz to match its underground counterpart, fixing its clunky appearance in the process. I also started the Tetraquin project, a series of 6 stages aimed to prepare the base with plentiful resources to build the high-tech village of Tetraquin and prepare the establishment of Starlight City. The first stage was here at the zombie spawner, which I turned into a villager purifier. In Session 216, I finished its controls and returned to the Aqua Lounge to construct an automated rabbit farm with its own carrot farm. It barely works. I also added the option to brew potions of leaving in the bar. In Session 217, I confronted the max entity cramming rule added in Minecraft 1.11, which broke all of the world's XP farms by exploiting a trick using vines that overlooks the maximum allowed entities per block of 24. In doing this, I completely redid the skeleton farm, also adding a sorting system for all the drops. I then moved over to the Blaze Blaster, rebuilding the entire farm with a new minecart system, cramming them the same way. Both farms worked well, but this trick did not work with cave spiders, so that farm remains unchanged. In Session 218, I started work on Starlight Outback by leveling and landscaping the terrain and lining the Outback Trail with podzol. This would surround the central mountain and connect at the Outback Plaza, neatly decorated. I also made a boardwalk connecting this plaza to Starlight Castle. In Session 219, I began our first build of the Outback, though ironically it could have been built anywhere. Taking out a large chunk of stone underground, I built the first part of the world's 4th parkour course, Chambers, which is a labyrinth that changes every time you step on a button. I made this course as a visual representation of our theory regarding the mystery of the Endermen, that they operate as a hive mind in which Enderquin can see only through the eyes which are present and spawned, but never beyond that. So, in Session 220, I directly confronted this mystery by finally exploring the ancient stronghold underneath the Megapolis canals. Here, I found an ancient book detailing the mystery of the Endermen, learning that our hive mind theory was correct. I returned to complete the second part of Chambers, a range-based collection of puzzles, effectively finishing the course. Finally, as something of a spit in the face of the gods, I took a large amount of TNT and made a giant crater where the portal stands, exposing it to the surface. In Session 221, I stepped back from these overwhelming mythical truths to work on the Nether Hub, slabbing it with sandstone and adding these peculiar though charming magma block stalactites. I also fixed some ejection bugs in the Blaze Blaster, which broke again after 1.12 was released. In Session 222, I began building Starlight Treehouse, starting with the slime block elevator that would ascend to the large trunk, taking us to the top. This call system was based on observers. Then I went ahead and built the big main room with a piston door. Starlight Treehouse was always built to function as a relatively detailed redstone house disguised as a primitive clubhouse. And, well, that's what it is, as proven in Session 223, when I added a second floor and drafted a control panel for the nightlights on it. The nightlights are a collection of 6 large glowstone towers surrounding Starlight Outback, which would all be toggled from this control box. I didn't do the wiring today, instead focusing on the construction of the pillars themselves. In Session 224, I built the map room complete with a map of Quintropolis Island, leaving room for other mapped lands like Stonewall and Candyland. I then added a block swap contraption to the front room and built a full trunk for the emerging structure. Likewise, because the demand for wood was exponentially rising, I upgraded the tree farm by installing bone meal dispensers to every post, all of which could be toggled by a lever. In Session 225, I added several things to the treehouse, starting with a jukebox, then 2 rooms which branched off the sides of the central trunk. The first of these became the new home for our cats, The second, a new home for the dogs. Obviously, the two don't get along, so they have to stay this way. Then, I finished the canopy on the second floor, and traveled thousands of blocks north to get parrots, which at the time were newly added. Somehow, I managed to get several back here, and they would tell us if a creeper happened to spawn on one of the branches, for example. Oh, and Luna blew up and died. In session 226, I liberated all the animals from our inhumane animal pens in the Starlight Resources facility, building for all of them a new home over in Stanland called the Sauna, which is not an actual sauna, but instead an acronym denoting the Stanland Agricultural Nesting Arena. For nesting, obviously. I also liberated our first villager from death, and kept him on standby while preying on our own ego to have beheld the power of gods. In session 227, I had fun with a new wheat farm design at the sauna, one that's a bit more old-fashioned but very fitting and still plenty automatic. The mushroom pens got some piston doors, and I traveled to Icaria and brought home 16 llamas. Then I made maps for Stanland, Icaria, and Rainbow Cliffs to put in the treehouse. In session 228, I completed the caravan conquest, built caravan quarters, colored all 16 llamas, and then built a marina off the coast. Naturally then, I needed to celebrate the completion of this build, so I went on a fairly lucrative caving adventure right beneath it. In session 229, I played a game of hide and seek with mobs who kept spawning in dark places around the treehouse. I then built all the new horse stables underneath the mountain in Starlight Outback, closing up the old ones. Then I improved landing pad by adding a chicken farm in case you ran out of food, changing the location of the shortcut, and slowing it way down to make it, well, more playable. Oh, and tigers died, too. In session 230, I finally built our iron farm as the first major farm construction of the Outback, breeding 10 villagers from 2 that I purified and activating the farm. This was stage 2 of the Enderquin project. Also, I removed the Twin Towers. Then, I dug out a space for the golems to burn to death, after which I removed a large layer of stone underground, connecting the Power Museum to the Outback via a long underground tunnel underneath the farmlands. This became the new tangent floor in session 231, where I unveiled plans to turn Starlight HQ into a giant redstone computer. More specifically, a modular base in which everything could be controlled by everything else. I explored the possibility of this by playing with binary addition, realized that what I wanted to achieve was possible, so naturally I blew up a huge chunk of stone underneath HQ to begin building the principal modular units. Session 232 is when I began building the link editor and 8-bit adder underneath the Power Museum. I spent a lot of time acknowledging and going over ALU architecture, formulating the Modular Interface Specification Center, which would be the control room for all link editing and data computing for the ALU. I built a bunch of redstone stuff and basically made a simple start-end process, though at this point, I still lacked the ability to read and write. It was in session 233 that I really wrapped my head around what the hell I was trying to do. Essentially, I wanted a base that could do and automate whatever I want. For example, making it such that the iron farm automates the chicken farm, which automates the melon farms. Or maybe I want all those to harvest every time I enter and exit the nether. All would be customizable from here. I used TNT to blow out even more stone, this time surrounding the resources facility, which would become its second floor, which would be home to a ton of other shit, starting with access points to many of the farms like the flower farms, chicken farm, cactus farm, sugarcane, etc. In session 234, I built several transport pods that would move items to and from the control floor to various other parts of the base like Starlight Treehouse. I then did some more aesthetic work on the control floor. Session 235 was a mixed bag of things. I built the new bedroom in Starlight Treehouse, which conserves energy, as it does not need to be lit up during the day. Then, I built another branch room, the Adventure Room, which is also a storage room for the treehouse. Afterwards, for some reason, I ran to the mob processing hub, which I hadn't visited since session 217, because my OCD was acting up. I realized that I didn't finish the item sorter for all the junk armor and bow drops that I get. Those go up in this big room, so all I had to do was extend the ice-based item sorter. I went outside, and that's when I found a scared villager in the jungle. This came as a genuine surprise after I had accepted the possibility that the villager invasion on Starlight HQ was a hallucination of my own design. The opposite was true, as I learned in session 236 when this villager, whose name was revealed to be Violet, told us a rather grim vision about the end of the world. I kept her in the Tropic Fortress thinking she was full of shit, And then I completed all 6 modes of the nightlights, wiring them up compactly in Starlight Treehouse. This was very difficult, by the way, and it utilizes a number of unique modes of redstone transmission, largely both observer-based and item dropper-based vertical designs. In session 237, I began building the Starlight Transit Authority System, or STAS. The base was becoming so big that I needed a better form of transportation, so a subway was it. I wanted it built as a proper subway though, so I drew out schematics for both a red line and blue line, the former of which would take you from Starlight Station to the tangent floor to Starlight Treehouse, and the latter, which would take you from Starlight Station to the Resources Facility, to Redstone Room, then to the Outback. I dug all these tunnels, and then in session 238, built the principal stop-go system using pistons and detector rails. This was duplicated 9 more times across all stations, with the SRF station being named Tetraquin Station, located keenly underneath the transport pods recently built. In session 239, I expanded Starlight Arcade and began building a new puzzle game called the Sandbox. I didn't get very far, but I established a working premise for how it works. A game that requires you to move a block through the block maze using only pistons. After this, I returned to the modular interface and had a bit of a light bulb moment, realizing that every individual link between machines that I wanted to create could be represented as a different binary number, from 1 to 256. I acted quickly on this realization, completing the adders and hooking up several machines across HQ to act as separate inputs alongside the MISC. Oh, and I lined the Redstone Observatory with actual redstone. Finally, in session 240, the MISC came online, with our first set of modular tests running successfully. I constructed a series of registers to write links, assigned several links using the currently connected machines, which at the time were the Iron Farm, Multipurpose Mob Farm, Night Lights, Resource Farms, and Transport Pods. Then I tested each. The MISC is incredibly simple to use. Press the glowstone to start the linking process. Choose one of the 8 inputs, then one of the 4 outputs. Done! The link is created. To celebrate, I took a large adventure, this time south in the Nether, emerging from the other side in a brand new Mesa biome. I started building a highway to this biome in session 241, in addition to introducing modifiers to the MISC to modulate its behavior. I introduced the modular mixer, which would let you choose which modifiers were plugged in. This is possible by building a series of AND gates between the modifier and the generator. I built the Starlight Balancer, which balances the base by reducing the activity of certain machines or operations that cause immense lag. Second, I built the Starlight Inverter, which inverts the output of the generator. Third, I started building Starlight Compressor, a multi-purpose machine that acts as an automatic item sorter and smelter. You can throw any items inside, all will be sorted. But to where? That's what I did in session 242, when I built the new automatic smelting room, which pulls items from the compressor, sorts out smeltable items like iron, gold, netherrack, clay, sand, etc., then sends the rest to storage. I didn't finish all the wiring for the compressor's functions, specifically how it will modify the MISC, but it's really 2 machines in one. It can be both an item sorter and or a modifier for the computer, and I finished all the aesthetics of the control floor. Looks a bit better, I'd say. After that, I talked with Violet, who was still a bit shaken with what she saw in her self-proclaimed vision, that she shared the truth of a magical ender chest of relics that was supposedly given to her by Enderquin himself. I pressured her to give it to me by trapping her inside with my newly captured friend Sparky, and she noted that she would give me the chest only if I could prove to connect heaven and hell. So, of course, in session 243, I went to the roof of the Nether and built the entirety of IL Mango's massive gold XP farm, which became the most powerful farm in the world, providing me in upwards of 100 levels in roughly 15 minutes. This was stage 3 of the Tetraquin project. Because it took so much of my iron, my first action was taking it all back from the beacon. In session 244, I made an automatic storing system for the masses of drops acquired through the gold grinder, which would also smelt all swords into gold nuggets. Then, I added a storage room for all nether blocks in the Nether Temple, followed by a large platform to observe ghast spawning behavior. Located roughly 128 blocks from the gold grinder, this will eventually become a ghast farm. In session 245, I fulfilled my end of the deal by adding the 3rd floor of Starlight Treehouse and emerging from the other side via a nether portal at the base of the gold grinder. I added a drop-off point to the transport pod, an enchanting room, and a full gold storage room. Then I brought Violet here and showed her, and to my surprise, she actually gave me the chest, which had a whole ton of stuff in it. In session 246, I completed Stas by connecting all the stations together, keeping one minecart at each station. Then I did the aesthetics. Afterwards, I went through the relics, which contained an ominous piece of poetry explaining how to use them. Long story short, I learned the truth of the ancient portal underneath Megapolis. It's a portal to Enderquin himself. So, in session 247, I rallied my supplies and built a large ring-based structure surrounding the portal called Skyland. This would be the beginning of our third major base in Quintropolis, Enderquin HQ. I then brought back all my old Guardian friends from Stonewall and put them up in these karma ducts. The relics also told me to kill some withers by removing their freedom. I interpreted that to mean squash their asses in bedrock, so I did that and got 4 more nether stars. I therefore began questioning the validity of the secret of Stonewall, which I so dearly held true. In session 248, I continued building Enderquin HQ by establishing Quinone Castle, a storage area, an enchanting room, and a couple micro-level farms. I also added prismarine supports to the karma ducts, and attempted pixel art for the Eye of Ender, which the relics refer to as the Eye of Iris, and so shall it be titled here. Finally, here in session 249, I built a new mob farm here at Enderquin HQ, which is far upgraded from the one at Starlight. Not just because it's faster, but because it also accounts for witches and spiders. I sorted all the drops and lit up a bunch of caves. This means I also got lots of resources to stock Enderquin HQ. Oh, and I needed to add milk posts in Skyland because karma is often not on our side. And now I stand here, knowing this chapter of our incredible journey is about to come to a close. I reflect on what we've done, what we've achieved, but also on what is to come, what I don't know, and what I will gain from what we'll learn on the other side. Enderquin is here.